Paul Babeu is the Pinal County Sheriff in Arizona, Pinal. I always mispronounce it. And we're delighted he's with us. He is on the ground day in and day out, watching and observing the truth and trying to fight against the chaos in the border incursions that are happening in our country. And he is joining us to respond to what the Homeland Security Secretary, Janet Napolitano, said, namely this idea that there's chaos along the border is ridiculous. It is great to have you on, Sheriff Babeu.
Laura, thanks for having me on. It's always great talking with you.
So we have this letter. I was handed this letter last night when I was hosting The Factor from these border mayors. And there are border mayors in Texas, in Arizona, in California, who are pushing back against this idea that there's chaos on the border. And they say, look, this is just not true. These are false perceptions that our cities are safe and they're great places to live, work, and play. How do you respond to that letter?
Well, if you look at who these people are, most of them, it's turned into such a partisan issue, and that's what's tragic about this. They're looking at it purely from a political perspective in the Obama, Napolitano, Holder administration, and the reality is far different than that. Here, Janet Napolitano is saying ad nauseum, the border is more secure than ever before. She's high-fiving people, saying that unprecedented resources are being added. And meanwhile, here in my county is the number one pass-through county for drug and human smuggling in all of America. And we're not even on the border. So therefore, she thinks that she doesn't have to have me on these conference calls. She never listens to anything that I say. I'm the president of the Sheriff's Association for my state. And more than half of all the illegals that come into America come through right here. More than half of all the drugs, just in the marijuana, come through my county, and it affects the rest of this country. And her administration, with the Border Patrol and Customs, 241,000 is what they say were apprehended last year alone, in the last fiscal year. They say that's a reflection of just one out of every 2.6. So they're saying that another 400,000 came through. We don't know who they are, where they're coming from, or where they're going. Now, how is that a more secure border? That the majority of the people that are coming in that they admit to, we have no clue who they are, when we already know that close to 20% of that smaller figure have a criminal record already established in our country. And we're not even talking yet of the OTMs, other than Mexicans, or people from countries of interest, like Yemen, Somalia, Jordan, Syria, places like that. And she is trying to convince us through argument that everything is just fine. And it shows how she's divorced from reality.
Well, I know there was a piece in the Huffington Post yesterday that read something like this, that the Obama administration was focusing too much on border enforcement and these raids that they were showcasing of certain companies and deportations. They were doing too much of that to the detriment of other issues. And they cited this new Pew study that came out yesterday about the number of interdictions. They're going, in some ways they're going down because of bad economy. But the left seems to be upset that Obama is doing too much.
I know, absolutely. Well, this past 2 years that I've served as sheriff in this county, we have more than doubled the confiscation of marijuana and other drugs here in my county from 19,000 pounds just in the marijuana to 43,000 and 46,000 in 09 and 10 last year. And we've nearly doubled the amount of calls that we've had with the Border Patrol and apprehensions from our perspective of illegals. And then our pursuits. These are officer, deputy pursuing people that fail to yield, intentionally trying to cause wrecks and outrunning the police, from 140 in 07, 142 in 08, and then in 9 it was 286. And in 10, this past year, was 340 times these people, drug and human smugglers, fled from my deputies, intentionally trying to cause wrecks, running red lights. And I share these figures, and some wise guy reporter said to me, well, Sheriff, isn't this just proof that you're just working harder and you bring a heavier hand of enforcement to bear and you're doing a better job? And I said, well, I'd like to take that compliment and thank you. but it underscores the fact that she doesn't know what she's talking about. The border is not more secure than ever. Her Homeland Security people, ICE people, have confirmed just this week to me that there's over 50 LPOPs, listening posts, observation posts. These are scouts on mountains in my county using binoculars, night vision, are living there 3-4 weeks at a time, getting resupplied by the cartels. These are foreign-born criminals themselves that are the lookouts for these cartels to ensure safe passage through my county. And what is she doing about it?
Well, what she says is, she said we need to send an unmistakable message to those who would threaten the safety of security of our border communities and feed this negative perception. So she actually has said that we're the problem. The people who are talking about border violence, we're the problem. And then they get these lackeys, these mayors, who are all, they're all elected officials too. And I guess most of them on this list are Democrats. They're saying, it's again, their reelection depends on their communities being safe. And the San Diego mayor is one of them saying, oh, no, things are actually looking pretty good. And every time I turn around, there's some horrible DWI at the hands of an illegal happening. In Northern Virginia, we just had a big case where this little girl raped at the hands of an illegal alien. And that was a huge story in Chesapeake, Virginia. And I could go on and on and on. But we're supposed to just suffer through all this and sit back as Janet Napolitano maligns us for even raising these issues.
Yeah, and that I'm not taking it, and the rest of us as good Americans, the United States of America, if anything, we stand for the rule of law. And when we have arrived at this point, when our own administration, our own leader in the White House assails us, attacks us, fights us as we try to secure our state in Arizona and to defend the rule of law, and takes us to court at a time when we need help, when they put up 15 billboard signs in my county, in Pinal County, Arizona, written in English saying, danger, warning, travel not recommended, drug and human smuggling, armed gunmen, warning American citizens that parts of our country are not safe because of foreign cartels. This is how upside down our country is, that the president sides with the ACLU to take me to court, an elected sheriff. Well, I've sworn an oath to protect not only my families, but to defend this Constitution. We are sending members of my SWAT team, 10 to 15 deputies at a time, out to meet these cartels that are armed, that are coming in with the help of their scouts on these mountainsides. And we're announcing ourselves in Spanish, this is the sheriff. Drop your weapons. You're under arrest. And if these people, I pray every time they surrender, but some of them may flee, and we'll chase after them and apprehend them. But if they point their weapons at my deputies, I've given written and direct verbal orders that if they point their weapons at us, you had better have rounds going downrange to neutralize that threat. And all these people out here in Arizona, some in the news media are making a big deal about this, like I'm trying to create some war. And I said, folks, this is our country. I have a problem with these people from foreign countries, and how have we arrived at this point that it's the job of the sheriff to fight these foreign cartels?
Yeah, the President Obama is clearly setting up some big compromise with Republicans on so-called comprehensive immigration reform, and that is going to be happening. But in the meantime, I want to play a soundbite for you from former President Bush. He, about 10 days ago, was at SMU, and he was doing a book event, and he was asked about how and why his comprehensive immigration reform bill went down in flames, and he called the opposition to it in part motivated by nativism, which is like something you'd expect to hear from a Democrat. But that's what a former President Bush was saying about people, I guess, like the Tea Party and myself. Then he went on to say this. Let's listen.
If you're raised in Texas, you understand what it means to interface with Mexican Americans who are Texan. And you realize that we share the same values: faith, family, hard work, commitment to service. And I think we ought to welcome people from different cultures to America. The great thing about America is we ought to be confident in knowing that everybody becomes an American, and we share the same value system. In other words, there's a great capacity for our society to assimilate people.
He went on to say that, we got to get these people out of this situation when that they're breaking the law by coming here. In other words, okay, so change the law so they're not breaking the law.
God.
Well, what does that mean for the actual law? What's your response to that general sentiment?
Well, that whoever, whether Republicans or Democrats, this is our country. And I will not be told that our proud history as a nation of immigrants, that somehow we're un-American to just not be willing to throw away our laws, look the other way, and have these people who have broken laws to come here, committed other felonies, because all these people who, quote, just want to come here to work, they're filing fraudulent documents, their Social Security numbers and identification, committing felonies when they're doing these things. Many of them do not have any willingness to assimilate into our country, have
Well, they have the same values. No, but Sheriff, they all have the same values, said President Bush. This idea, we're interfacing with them all the time. My point, and this is the reason we had you on, you're interfacing with a different element that, frankly, President Bush and all these other politicians pushing comprehensive reform don't want to talk about. And they want to poo-poo it and, like, marginalize us as nativists. This is the reality on the ground that you see day in and day out.
Right.
And I'll give you 20 seconds to wrap it up.
Some of these people coming into this country aren't the normal people want to wash dishes and do landscaping. They're some of the worst violent criminals from other countries that are coming here, other than Mexicans and then people from countries of interest. We better wake up and secure this border. I've served in Iraq in the Army, and this is the greatest national security threat to our country. And we have our own leaders trying to lull us into a false sense of security.